everyone, how's it going? Are you hanging in there? Hopefully you're starting to settle in now. This week, I'm going to talk about lessons 9 through 12. Now, here are the supplies you're going to need. Okay, so this week you're going to need the lessons manual, the students' worksheets, the AL abacus, the colored tiles, the math card games manual, and if you have one, a Chinese checkerboard. Okay, well, let's get started by turning to lesson 9. Your child is going to start off in the warm-up section by working on 3 multi-digit subtraction problems. Now, you will want to have your child use the abacus, especially if they are still getting used to using it. Now, most of the time, you are not going to want to spend more than 5 minutes on the warm-up section. However, in this case, this is an exception. You're going to want to add a few extra minutes so your child has time to solve the 3 multi-digit subtraction problems. If you find that these problems are difficult for your child, it might be because their basic subtraction math facts are not solid. And if that is the case, you're going to want to play some additional subtraction math card games to strengthen up those math facts. So last week, you worked on multi-digit subtraction, and we are going to continue that work today. Now remember last week how we solved the problems from left to right? Well, today we are going to do it the more traditional way, from right to left. Let me show you how this will look on the abacus. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the problem as demonstrated in the middle of lesson 9, the first page of lesson 9, where we have 9,062, and we are subtracting from 9,062, 5,146. Let me show you what that looks like. The first step, though, is to go ahead and add the first line, 9,062. So that's what I'm going to do, 9,062. And we are going to take from it 5,146. Well, our ones place, I need to take away 6. But do I have 6? I do not, which means I need to trade or borrow. So I'm going to take 110 and exchange it for 10 ones. On your mark, get set, trade. Now I have enough to pull away 6, to subtract 6. So I'm going to subtract 6. Okay, now I need to take away 4 tens. Do I have 4 tens? Yes, I do. So I can take away 4 tens. I also need to take 100 away. Do I have any hundreds? I do not, so I need to make a trade. Again, 1,000 is the same as 10 100s. Oops, 10 100s. On your mark, get set, trade. Now I have enough to subtract 100 from, so I'm going to do that. And I need to subtract 5,000s. My solution is 3,916. So why is using side 2 of the abacus necessary? Well, for one, and probably most importantly, it helps your child understand place value better. But it also helps your child subtract correctly. If you will look on your lesson under the explanation section, it shows this problem 62 minus 46. And you might even want to read through that section. But many times on this kind of a problem, your child will want to subtract the 2 from the 6 in the ones place as opposed to the 6 from the 2. But doing subtraction on side 2 of the abacus will prevent that from happening. Also, in the middle of the second page of the lesson, your child is going to do a double trade. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's how to do a double trade. Our problem in the book is 400 minus 222. Our first step is to add the 400 to the abacus. Now, to subtract 222, we need to take a look. Do we have any ones? No. Do we have any tens? No. So in order to subtract ones, we actually have to go all the way to hundreds to do some trading. So I'm going to take 100 and trade it for 10 tens. On your mark, get set, trade. And then I'm going to take one of the 10s and trade it for 10 of the 1s. On your mark, get set, trade. Now I have enough to do my subtraction. I'm going to take 222. I'm going to subtract 2 from the 1s place, 2 from the 10s place, and 2 from the 100s place. And I'm left with 178. Once this activity has been completed, your child will need to complete worksheet 3 that they started last week. This lesson also does not have a formal specific math card game suggested, but that does not mean that you do not play one. You can play the game on the number 10, which we actually have a blog for on our website, or you can pick another game that will address a struggle that your child might be having. Okay, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 10. In this lesson, your child is going to need to use their math journal pages. Remember, those are found in the back of the students' worksheet books, and they look like this. In the warm-up section, you will see some more complex subtraction problems asked. If your child needs to use the abacus, let them do so. Also, be sure that the warm-up section doesn't take any longer than 5 minutes. If it does, you may need to go back and review some concepts after the lesson is done today, or play an extra math card game. Lesson 10 will talk about arrays. Now, if you're not familiar with the term arrays, basically an array is things organized in rows and columns. And they also, in this particular lesson, provide a great introduction to multiplication. Most of this lesson is straightforward. Take a look at the second page of the lesson. On the top, you're going to see that your child is going to build a 4x4 array, and you are going to ask what shape it is. And your child will most likely see a square. But I also want to make sure that you explain to your child that a square is also considered a rectangle. Now, the definition of a rectangle is listed in the explanations to the right of that section, and it says a rectangle has 4 sides and 4 right angles. So that means that the square is also a rectangle. So make sure they understand that a square falls in the rectangle category. Also, there is a term about halfway down on the second page that says not all sides are congruent. Now, congruent simply means that you can lay one on top of the other and not have one larger or smaller than the other. And that brings me to a thought. If you do not already have one, you may want to invest in a math dictionary. I use the Usborne Illustrated Dictionary of Math. Right Start Math sells it. I have found it extremely helpful. The pages are colorful, and it includes many, many pictures to help understand various mathematical terms and algorithms. So the game for lesson 10 is Some Rummy, and we have a blog on our website, and the blog for this game is called 2019 Summer Game Number 1, and it's Some Rummy, but it's playing a word game on it, Summer Rummy. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 11. Now, as of the date of the recording of this video, this is the first lesson in level D that has a correction made to it since it started its print. So let me show you how to get to our corrections page. Okay, so here we are on our website, rightstartmath.com. Now, what you're going to want to do is go to resources and then click on teaching support. Once you get to teaching support, scroll down until you see corrections, click on that, and then scroll down and find your particular level that you're using. And for our case, it's level D. So if you click on level D, it will show all the corrections made to level D since its start of the print. And as you can see here, this is lesson 11, which is what we're talking about right now. But take a look at the change date. This change was made in May of 2016. So if you have a brand new book that you purchased this year, this change will have already been made and you will not even see it. You will not need to make a correction in your lesson manual. However, if you're borrowing a book or you purchased your book used, you may need to make that change. I would recommend that you go through each of these corrections and make these changes in your lesson manual and in the worksheets book so that when you get to them, those corrections have already been made and there will be no confusion or frustration down the road. Okay, the game for lesson 11 is again Sum Rummy. Now, for lesson 10, your child may have chosen to calculate their scores by using addition. However, for this lesson, be sure that your child uses multiplication to calculate their scores. They can use the abacus if they need it. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to the last lesson for the week, lesson 12. Notice in the materials section, it mentions to you that you are to use, it's listed in bold, that you are to use a Chinese checkers game board if you have one. Now, if you do not have one, don't worry about it. You can move on, do the lesson without it. I did not have one when I taught my lesson to my children, and we went through the lesson just fine. Before we get too far into the lesson, I want you to take a look at the explanation section, the very first paragraph. It says, when introducing new topics, avoid asking the child to guess the answer. Children with poor memories tend to remember the first response, even when it's wrong. If your child does not know the answer, your first response should be, okay, you know what? Let's look it up. That might mean getting out an abacus or some other manipulative. It might also mean getting out the math dictionary and letting your child look up the term. But you do not want to have them guess. We don't want that wrong answer sticking in their mind. Okay, in lesson 12, we are going to work on the multiples of 2, 4, 5, and 10. Now, when your child is using the abacus for these multiples, have them say the multiples out loud. So let me show you what I mean. So if I'm working on the multiples of 2, I'm going to have them go 2, 4, 6, 8. Notice I'm showing the beads, and I'm also saying the multiples out loud. As I've mentioned before, having your child say that multiple will really help in their learning of those multiplications. Multiplication is hard, and so you want to give your child as many helps along the way as possible. Okay, so on page 2 of the lesson, your child is going to use the Chinese checkerboard and the worksheet 4 to learn the value of grouping, which is also skip counting, which is also multiplication. Your child is instructed to not count the dots on the worksheet or the checkerboard one by one. They're not going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead, they're going to want to group them as a whole. And there are 2 solutions provided in your lesson manual. But there are other ways to solve this particular worksheet. So if your child does not group in this specific way, that's okay, as long as they are grouping to find the solution. This lesson also does not have a specific game suggested. However, you can go ahead and play the game Go to the Dump, or another game that might meet your child's needs and interests. Okay, so now you are ready for the week. Also, don't forget that if you have any questions or concerns, you can email or call us for help. We are here to help you. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about lessons 13 through 16. Bye, everybody.